All right, Dan, here we are. We are the Varsity Voices, and we are back at it after a really exciting, was it week 8 already, Dan?
Week 8 already, yeah. Can you believe that?
No, I can't. As I was going through this, I was looking at it and I thought, they've played 8 games. The playoff picture is coming into focus a lot better, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the only thing out there is the wrinkle into it is 4-win teams. How many 4-win teams are gonna make it in to the playoffs? And I don't know. We'll see. You got to wait till next week, and I feel like the number dwindles every week. It started out.
That's what you said. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I heard as many as a dozen. Then I heard 9. Then I heard, and you did you say you thought you heard only 4?
Yeah, now it's like 4 or 5, supposedly.
Okay.
And I think part of that is because originally it was just the public league division champs were going to be, but now they're the next best record for 4 of the teams, I think. So they're adding an additional 4 public league teams. And yeah, I don't know. That's what I heard. That's what I read. Who knows what's real and what isn't?
Yeah, a week from today, we'll know. We record these on Sunday, so it'll be after the selection show is Saturday night. Yeah, so
right.
We'll know from that point how it all shakes out.
Yeah, and we'll see. Obviously the predictions, playoff predictions, will come out this week. There's some people who are really good at it. We mentioned Steve Susie, who follows it really closely for Shaw local. So I'm sure he's going to have an update sometime this week too. So we'll have some kind of maybe picture 90%, 75 to 90% going into the last week 9.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. All right. So we covered the week 8 games, Dan, on our Friday Night Blitz. Thanks to everybody who listened to that, and I'm sure you got a lot of the scores. We provided all the updates through the night, and again, some really good games. But we're here today to do kind of our quick hits recap, Dan, of some of the games that we watched, and we'll go back and forth here between the games that I covered, the games that you covered. So why don't we start with one of the games that I covered, and that was St. Francis versus DePaul Prep. So St. Francis, this was a really good game. I should start there. It came down to overtime. These two teams that we said were so evenly matched, and sure enough, that proved out in this game. But St. Francis pulls this out 41-38, over DePaul Prep. DePaul Prep, they had some really outstanding performances in a loss here. Juju Rodriguez, he threw for 320 yards, 5 touchdowns. He also rushed for 63 yards. Braden Peavy picked up 132 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. The other side, St. Francis, Brady Palmer had an excellent game, threw for over 278 yards, Dan. So, the guys that we've been talking about all year, as far as stepping up and making plays, they did that in this game. One of the big things here was, St. Francis had some outstanding performances on defense too, Dan. Especially their defensive line. Will Alt, 2 sacks, 4 hurries, 1 tackle for loss, 4 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, and that brings us to Dan.
That's always a good sign.
Always a good sign. We're talking about defense, and there's Zuko. And, we've got a lot of worthy participants this week, Dan, for the Dawg Pound and in consideration for Zuko's Dog of the Week. So why don't you take us through that?
All right. Well, another good week with a lot of great defensive efforts. You've talked about a couple already. I'm gonna go through the dog pound first, Joe. So who made the dog pound? And we gotta give these guys their props. They are in the dog pound right there, scratching at the door to be dog of the week. The first I'm going to talk about is someone from IC, linebacker John Goggin. 4 tackles, an interception, several hurries. Just played a great game, all around great game for IC. Joe, the next player, sophomore. Always interesting when sophomores get on the list. From Providence, sophomore linebacker Colin Shedwell. Great name for a linebacker too, by the way.
It is.
Shedwell.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He had a sack, tackle for loss, 5 total tackles. Really played a great game for Providence over the weekend. Next in the dog pound, Joe, we've got Charlie Steck, defensive lineman from Brother Rice. He had a pick 6. So that's always going to get you some recognition with us. We love D linemen that take it to the house.
Yeah, big man getting a TD with an interception. Love it. Yeah.
On the score sheet, love that. Next, Joe, we've got Jackson Lane from Montini. Jackson had 16 tackles. So that's a busy night, including a tackle for a loss and a forced fumble. So highly productive night for Jackson Lane. We've also got from DePaul Prep in the game that you were just talking about, Aiden Castetti. He's a defensive end at 5 tackles, 2 sacks. So really good game in the DePaul Prep in St. Francis. But Joe, our dog of the week. All right, our dog of the week, and you just mentioned him, and what was, I think, the best game over the weekend.
For sure, yeah.
St. Francis, DePaul Prep, Will Alt, defensive lineman from St. Francis. He had 2 sacks, a tackle for loss, 4 other tackles, 4 hurries, just all over the place. So did a great job for St. Francis, and is this week Zuko's dog of the week.
This week, Zuko's dog of the week is Will Alt. Yeah, well deserving, Dan. Like you said, that was an awesome game and some awesome plays on both sides of the ball for both teams. But Will Alt definitely stood out for St. Francis, and congratulations, Will. You are this week's Zuko's dog of the week.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Good for him.
All right.
That might be our second. Is that our first St. Francis dog?
I think it is. There might have been somebody in the dog pound earlier.
Right.
I don't have all the names in front of me, unfortunately.
No worries.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure our first winner from St. Francis.
I always love to put you on the spot, Joe.
I know you do, and I feel like I'm 100% prepared, Dan. Then you ask me something that I don't know.
Hey,
Never fails.
I feel the same way. Well, Joe, I will stick in that division. Those matchups. I have Bennett versus Nazareth. Nazareth walks away with this one, 62-14. Joe, it was a kind of a beatdown right from the first snap. In fact, Nazareth took the first snap. Lesroy Tittle took the first snap around the edge for a long touchdown. Bennett got the ball, went 3 and out. They either had a tip or a block punt that resulted in another touchdown for Nazareth. So Nazareth just owned this one. It was a running clock by early in the second half. There was a significant injury. I did hear that Sean McKee from Bennett is okay. So what we saw on the game was mostly precautionary, but so that's a little sliver of a silver lining in for Bennett. But Nazareth really owned this one, Joe, 62-14.
That is a bit of a blowout, Dan.
Yeah.
And where does Bennett and where does Nazareth go next week? Who are they playing?
Oh, boy. Yeah. Put me right on the spot.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Wait. I might be able to help you on this. Let me see. Nope. I got no help.
I think I know that Bennett Bennett, I believe, hosts DePaul Prep for week
DePaul
9.
Prep, right?
So another big game with a tough opponent for Bennett. And then
Oh,
I think
Naz,
and
it's Naz and St. Francis, Dan. I got it for you.
oh yeah, Naz and St. Francis. So yeah, so
It's going to be.
those are really good games. Those will be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that will be a good game. All right, let's next game that I have here that I covered was the IC St. Viator game. IC comes out with a big win here, 48-28 over St. Viator. IC had Will Breik had a big game. He rushed. Yeah, he rushed for 75 yards on 5 carries in this game. Calcagno rushed for Foley. Calcagno rushed for 75 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Dan, I think they finished with over 400 rushing yards in this game. IC did so. But as we mentioned, their defense played really well. John Goggin, one of our Dawg Pound members, he had an interception. Chance Williams had an interception. Will Schmidt. I think there were a total of 4 interceptions in this game for IC. The other one coming from Tamarian Garner as well. So that's 2 in a row for IC now, and their record 4-4. As for Viator, they're on a 5-game losing streak. Dan, started off the year 3-0. They're now 3-5. They are really in a tough spot. Coming down to the last game of the regular season, IC will go or take on St. Rita, which is going to be another really good game. And Viator goes to St. Patrick for their last game of the year.
All right, Joe. Well, speaking of St. Pat, so the games I covered weren't all that close, unfortunately. But St. Rita moves to 6-2, defeating St. Pat's. They fall to 2-6. They defeated them 48-7. So again, this one was never really in question. St. Rita opened the scoring. It was a little slow starting for St. Rita. Yeah, the teams went back and forth, but St. Rita did score early in the first quarter, kind of steadily put it on to St. Pat's. They did also have a running clock in this one, Joe, but it wasn't until maybe late in the third quarter or fourth quarter, but it was all St. Rita from Armbruster. They were able to play a lot of their backups. Get a lot of people in this game, which is great for Rita. Too bad for Pat, but St. Rita dominates this one, 48-7.
Okay, all right. Let's go to Providence and Marian Catholic. So, Dan, Providence literally ran away with this game. They beat Marian Catholic 34-6. Gavin Hagan, who we've talked about before, is his coach says he's one of the best players in the state. He ran for 3 touchdowns. Other running back Jackson Colleen had another rushing touchdown. So Providence just racked up the yards on the ground in this game, and they really rode Gavin Hagan here. Like I said, he had 3 touchdowns. I think just under 100 yards rushing. Providence, they're now 4-4. And for the second year in a row, Dan, Providence is coming down to the last game of the year for them to try and get that 5th win. We watched the game last year. It was against Bennett, right, where they got their 5th win,
right,
and
right.
got into the playoffs. But they've got to go to Joliet Catholic. No, they're home versus Joliet Catholic next week. So it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a good game. But Providence backs against the wall. BATW, they need that win. Marian Catholic, they're 2-6. They finish up next week, Dan, against Rochelle. They filled in that game. It was going to be I believe, the forfeit against De La Salle. But they were able to find a game, and they're going to go out to Rochelle and play a really good Rochelle team.
That's good. I'm glad they got a game. That's nice. Well, Joe,
Yeah.
I had St. Ignatius and went to Montini, and that was a big game for Montini. Johnny's night, one of their traditional games that they have. honoring a past player. They did a lot of different things. There was a lot of pageantry at that game, and Montini backed it up on the field with a 28-7 victory over St. Ignatius. So Montini moves, excuse me, Montini moves to 6-2. St. Ignatius, Joe, falls to 3-5, and they are backs against the wall with they might not have time to get it righted because their schedule doesn't get any easier, Joe. They host Brother Rice, so they've got a really tough climb. While Montini also has a big game in division game. These in division games are great, especially in the white division.
Yeah.
They host St. Lawrence, but Montini takes this one over St. Ignatius 28-7.
All right, and you mentioned Brother Rice there, Dan. The next game is Brother Rice and St. Lawrence. Brother Rice comes out with a big win over St. Lawrence, 35-6, and pretty dominating fashion, Dan, which is a little surprising, probably to both of us, but. They're again. We talked about star players stepping up in big games. Tyler Lofton, he rushed for 80 yards and a touchdown. They also have a really good sophomore running back, Jamison Davis. He ran 10 times for 60 yards on Friday as well. C.J. Gray, another really good game. Orchestrating the offense here, 8 of 12 for 105 yards, touchdown pass to Jimmy Maxon, who we mentioned a lot. He added another touchdown run. You talked about, a member of the Dawg Pound, Charlie Steck, defensive lineman. He returned an interception for 17 yards for a touchdown. And also Connor Stack had a 2-yard touchdown run. So it was a complete win for Brother Rice over St. Lawrence, who had come into the game at 6-1. I didn't realize this, Dan, until I looked at some of the information. And Chase Kwiatkowski, the quarterback for St. Lawrence, he's been out for 3 games now. Yeah. So, and it's no coincidence that they've been struggling a little bit on offense, with him out of the game, right? But we'll see if he's back next week. Like I said, St. Lawrence is now 6-2. They go to Montini, as you just mentioned, take on the Broncos. Brother Rice secures their playoff spot with their 5th win in this game, and they go to St. Ignatius next week for the final game of the regular season.
All right, good games to watch, Joe. And you mentioned some surprises, and I had one that was kind of a bit of a surprise. We may have swapped on our picks here or been different on our picks, but Mount Carmel goes to Fenwick, comes away with a 35-10 win. So Joe, this game started pretty back and forth, and I think Fenwick took the field goal to start the scoring. Mount Carmel scored to make it 7-3. Fenwick came back to make it 10-7. It looked like it was going to be that kind of night where both teams went back and forth. But Mount Carmel, like they do, they wear you down with their really complex and great passing game. They pulled away for a 35-10 victory. So Mount Carmel moves to 6-2, Joe, and Fenwick falls to 6-2.
Okay.
Both teams have big games next week. Mount Carmel hosts Loyola, so that's definitely hang a star on that one. That one's going to be one that we want to watch. And Fenwick, they will host Carmel. So another really good game. We know Carmel, we mentioned, backs against the wall. They are definitely there. Fenwick's going to try to really improve their seed to get that 7th victory. So it should be really exciting to watch how that plays out. But Joe, Fenwick gets the victory. Mount Carmel gets the victory over Fenwick 35-10.
All right. So that brings me to the Carmel and Loyola game, 2 teams you just mentioned, Dan, and another, maybe you call it blowout. And we talked about this in Friday Night Blitz, more blowouts than we expected, in week 8 for sure. But Loyola beat Carmel 34-16. They moved to 6-2 with that win. Loyola started a sophomore quarterback, Dan, Charlie Daly. Not sure why, if there's some kind of injury or something, or a lingering injury with Fitzgerald, but Charlie Daly, sophomore quarterback, he came in, he performed well. He had touchdown pass to Drew McPherson. McPherson also had a Russian TD. He's having a really good year. Interesting thing about this game, Dan, is Carmel actually had more total yards than Loyola in the game, but just could not score. They just could not put it in the end zone. Trey Taylor had a good game. He threw for over 225 yards, I think, but they just could not get any touchdowns. So Loyola, as you mentioned, they now play Mount Carmel. We're hanging a star on that game, as you said, and Carmel 3-5. Going to Fenwick with their playoff hopes being almost slim to none at this point, Dan. I mean, they need a win, but even with that, they only get to 4, and then it's a coin toss from there. So, some really good and important games coming up in week 9.
Oh yeah, that game's going to be really important for both teams, like we mentioned. So. Joe, a team that is firmly in and in a great position is Marist. Marist defeated Marmion 42-7. Marist moves to 7-1. Marmion drops to 4-4. This is a game, Joe, that also maybe had kind of a slow start, but Marist was up 42-0 at one point. They were in control the whole game. Jacob Ritter was outstanding. They also had a lot of people play. They were able to get a lot of folks in that game, kind of took control in the second quarter and never really looked back. So they go up they hosted Marmion, was really tough to play, and were able to be in control that whole game. So Joe, Marist again at 7-1 will host Notre Dame next week, while Marmion is at Leo. So Marmion will be looking for their 5th victory. They're currently 4-4, so they will look for that 5th victory, which puts them in much better position to earn that playoff spot. We think these 5-4 teams, if they have enough points, should get in. I think Marmion's schedule kind of dictates that they would have a lot of points. So I think it's been a big game at Leo next week for Marmion.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's the games from week 8, Dan. A couple blowouts, some really good games, and it sets up week 9 to be a really interesting week. Especially with teams trying to get a better seed, as you mentioned, as well as some teams who are BATW, backs against the wall, and are hoping for a win and a shot at getting into the playoffs. So it's going to be a fun week. It's going to be an interesting week. We will be doing our previews and predictions, our prognosticus episode, which will be coming up later this week. So make sure you come back and listen to that. Look for that. Make sure wherever you're listening from, like, follow, subscribe. We're out there on all the places where you get your podcasts, as well as social media too. So feel free to reach out to us, but make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. But thank you for listening. And Dan, one more before we go. Give our who's our Zuko's Dog of the Week.
All right, so Will Alt, Zuko's Dog of the Week from St. Francis. Just quickly go over some of his stats again. He had 2 sacks, 1 tackle for loss, 4 tackles, 4 hurries in a big victory over DePaul Prep. So congratulations to Will Alt, Zuko's Dog of the Week.
All right, awesome. Okay, everybody, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you soon.